Greetings and welcome back to my channel. Today we're looking at the 2020 supernatural horror film Fantasy Island, directed by Jeff Wadlow and starring Lucy Hale, Michael Peña, and Maggie Q, among others. Let's begin. Businesswoman Gwen Olsen, former police officer Patrick Sullivan, stepbrothers JD and Brax Weaver, and teenager Melanie Cole arrive at Fantasy Island, a tropical resort where fantasies apparently come true. Upon arrival, island proprietor Mr. Rourke guides the guests to their fantasies. Patrick is enlisted in a war in honor of his late father. The Weavers become honor guests at a mansion rave. Melanie takes revenge on her childhood bully Sloane Madison, and Gwen accepts her ex-boyfriend Alan Chambers' marriage proposal, which she rejected many years ago. Melanie learns that Sloane was kidnapped and brought to Fantasy Island against her will. She saves her from a masked surgeon and both run away. Meanwhile, Patrick is captured by a military platoon and taken to their commander, Lieutenant Sullivan, whom Patrick recognizes as his father. As night falls, the surgeon attacks Melanie and Sloane again before Damon, a private investigator, takes his life. Damon reveals that Rourke offered him to see his deceased daughter again. However, his fantasy turned into a nightmare that trapped him on the island. He also explains that the fantasies are created by spring water under a glowing rock in a cave. The trio collect some spring water and head to the resort for help. Gwen wakes up the next morning to find she has a daughter with Alan and becomes dissatisfied. When Rourke explains that the fantasies must be fulfilled so that his own fantasy of being with his deceased wife can continue, Gwen convinces him to give her the fantasy she really wanted, to save a neighbor who died in a fire. Unknown to the guests, Fantasy Island begins to turn the fantasies into living nightmares as the Weavers are taken hostage by a cartel associated with the mansion's owner, and Gwen is taken into the night she accidentally started a fire that took the life of her neighbor Nick Taylor. She finds out that the other guests, except Melanie, were also there and attempts to save Nick, fails and is rescued by Rourke's assistant Julia. Elsewhere, Sullivan's soldiers are summoned to rescue the Weavers. After being shot dead, the cartel reanimate as zombies who attack the soldiers. In the ensuing gunfight, JD is fatally shot and Sullivan sacrifices himself so Patrick and Brax can escape. Melanie and Sloane are ambushed by the zombified surgeon until Damon leaps over a cliff with him, saving them at the cost of his own life. The remaining guests regroup at the resort but are cornered by Rourke, who reveals that they are in a fantasy in which they are all killed. Realizing that everyone was involved in Nick's death, Melanie says that Nick asked her out that night and she turned him down, which is the reason he is in the apartment. The guests assume it is Julia's fantasy, as they believe that Julia was Nick's mother. The guests escape to the dock to be rescued by a plane sent by Damon's associates, but it is shot down. In response, the guests run to the cave to destroy the glowing rock with grenade Patrick is carrying. Suddenly, Melanie stabs Patrick and takes Sloane hostage, revealing that it is her true fantasy. She orchestrated their arrival to seek revenge on them for Nick's death, whom she had a date and was convinced was her soulmate. Julia is revealed to be Rourke's wife, brought back by the power of the island, dying of a terminal disease she was suffering from when she met Rourke, and convinces him to help the guests before disappearing. Sloane remembers the spring water she collected before and wishes Melanie to be forever with Nick. As a result, a zombified Nick attacks Melanie and drags her into the water. Before drowning, Melanie detonates the grenade, but Patrick sacrifices himself and falls on it to protect the others. As the fantasy concludes, Gwen, Sloane, and Brax wake up at the resort where Rourke agrees to let them go. While the guests board a plane to leave the now purified Fantasy Island, Brax wishes for JD to come back to life, but Rourke explains that Brax must stay on the island for his fantasy to come true. After Gwen, Sloane, and a resurrected JD depart, Rourke asks Brax to become his new assistant. Remembering a nickname JD gave him, Brax chooses to rename himself Tattoo, and they will work together for the future arrivals on the island. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below letting me know which movie you'd like to see me do next, and what your favorite part of this was. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and goodbye.